Hi everyone, this is the report for November 2nd. Thanks for joining me. And I'm going to start off by addressing the elephant in the room. And obviously the elephant is not an elephant and the room is not a room. We're talking about the delta and we're talking about a fish that's in the system now. We're talking about salmon. For those of you who have been out, you've probably seen an influx of salmon coming into the system. A lot of us are catching salmon. I want everyone to be aware of the Fish and Game regulations. Salmon fishing is closed. You cannot target salmon. With that being said, salmon will be in the same spots, same types of areas that we're fishing for stripers and largemouth bass. If you're throwing lipless crankbaits, jerk baits, anything shiny that's moving quickly, you may have a salmon come up and grab that. You may also have an incidental snagging of a salmon. Here's the regulation. You cannot target salmon. If you hook a salmon, you are allowed to bring that fish to the boat to release it to get your lure back. You cannot remove that fish from the water. You get it, it's a beautiful fish, it's a big fish, you can't pull him out of the water and take a picture. You've got to get the bait out of its mouth or out of its fin, wherever it's snagged, get it out as quickly as you can, revive the fish, and let it go. What Fish and Game is trying to do is keep these fish in the system so they will spawn. Unfortunately, most of these fish here in the Delta, they make it into the back sloughs and things, they kind of are lost and stuck back there. Their chances of spawning are probably not very good. What we want to do is bring that fish in as quickly as you can so it's not overly tired, revive them the best that you can while holding them in the water, and release them as quickly as you can unharmed. All right, let's get into river conditions and then we'll talk about the stripers and largemouth and a whole lot going on. We are in transition big time here, and the big transition is the water temperature drop out here. In the last week, it's dropped about 10 degrees. It's went from right around 68 down to about 58 degrees. Last weekend, I think overnight it dropped about 6 degrees. Last week I talked about, man, I hope we get these 75 degree days and we have a slow burn from the high 60s until it drops down into the 50s, and that didn't happen. It dropped in 1 week. Has that been good for the fishing? Not really. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we knew it was going to happen, and it happened this week. What do we want to clarity, again, it's all over the board. I've been up north fishing around the McCollum, White Slough, Disappointment, and we've got really clear water up here. We're talking 6 to 8 feet. I'm still talking to people that are down around Discovery Bay. It's 2-foot visibility. So depending on where you're at, the visibility is going to be somewhere between 2 and 8 feet of visibility. And I suspect that it's going to get clearer and clearer as winter sets in. Another thing that you may want to be aware of is the hyacinth is really breaking up out here. Certain outgoing tides, man, in Disappointment Slough, White Slough, you can hardly get through the darn hyacinth. It's breaking up and floating down the system. The spraying, I believe, stopped at the 1st of November, but they were out spraying last week. They weren't spraying the pellets. They were spraying, like the basically the spray for surface vegetation, and what I saw them spraying was hyacinth. We will see residual effects of their spraying last week for the next 3-4 weeks. It's going to die, it's going to get brown, it's going to start floating down the stream. But the spraying is done for the year as far as I know. And I have continually talked to biologists that are out here that are looking around, checking vegetation. And the general consensus is it's not what they haven't formulated all their reports and everything, but the river is in really good shape. And I'll tell you, the fish are absolutely beautiful. They're coming out of here. The largemouth bass are fat. They're just beautiful fish. So with that, let's get into the report, and we'll start with stripers. The stripers have been on for the last couple weeks, they have been declining. The numbers have been declining. I talked to Jeff Suhu. He was only out once last week, and the fishing was slow for him. He's finding plenty of fish in the system, but where the fish are, where the moving water is, there's a ton of weeds, there's a ton of vegetation that are floating down river. He's saying that it's very hard for him just to keep a line in the water long enough to catch fish. So he's had a tough week, and he's talked to several of his confidants, his friends that are out fishing the West Delta, and he said he's talked to a lot of very good anglers, and they're all having tough times out there. Some of them are catching a couple of fish, but really slow fishing. I know the people that I've talked to at the dock this week that have been out targeting stripers here around Paradise Point, they've had tough fishing. There are fewer and fewer stripers being caught by largemouth bass fishermen that are catching them in their incidental catch, on jerk baits, crank baits, and things that we're normally throwing for largemouth bass. And most of those fish are small. 2 weeks ago, guys were finding schools of fish and catching numbers of those schoolie type fish. Now the report is, yeah, we caught a couple small 12-inch stripers and we got one that was 18 or 20 inches. Just not a lot of fish in the system right now. With this cool weather, that should help the stripers, and if we get some rain next Monday, it might pull those fish right back into the system. So even though we've had a couple weeks of tough fishing, you guys that are targeting striper, make sure that you don't stop fishing for them. It's going to get better, and it may get better after Monday when we get this cooler weather and the rain come in. One real bright spot this week was my friend Eli, the NorCal angler. He went out, and you guys know Eli. He's from a Sacramento guy. He fishes up around the Sacramento River and the tributaries up there. He went out and reported fairly slow striper fishing. He only got 3 fish, but they were the 3 fish that he wanted. Here's a picture of Eli with a 40-inch, I believe it was 42-inch striper. I saw the pictures of his other 2 fish, and they may not have been this big, but they were pretty darn close. 3 huge stripers. Couldn't find schoolie fish, but he pulled out big swim baits and he picked up some big stripers. So if you're out after stripers this next week and you can't find the schoolies, don't go home, throw on a big swim bait, go to your normal spots, fish the edges of current, and they're still in the system, and you never know when you're going to get that fish of a lifetime. Congratulations, Eli. Unbelievable. You got 3 fish that size in one day. Wish you could have caught some more, but what the heck. All right, let's talk about bass fishing. I got to get my notes for this. The largemouth bass fishing has been slowly declining along with the stripers, but we're still catching fish. This last week was a little slower than the week before, and I believe it's going to probably get a little slower coming up. We're going to get into winter situations. Let me give you a few reports that I got this week, and this first report here from Matthew pretty much says it all for what a lot of people are finding out. Now, Matthew went out 2 days. He went out Friday and Saturday out of B&W, and Friday I believe the water was 63-degree water temps. Saturday it was down to like 57 or 58. 5 or 6 degree temperature drop overnight. Now Friday Matthew did everything on frogs. Good numbers of fish, up to 4 pounds, had a great day frog fishing. Saturday, could not buy a bite on a frog. He had to switch over to Kitex with an underspin, and he did catch some fish. But that 6-degree water temp drop, obviously it hurt the topwater fishing. Milton's a bank angler, and I've got to tell you about Milton. He's been fishing all year and having a tough year. He's fishing off the bank. I've had a tough year, and I know a lot of my friends have had tough years. We're running around in expensive bass boats covering the whole delta. Milton's fishing out around White Slough. He's fishing off the bank, and he finally popped off a 6.5. I got to show you a picture of Milton on a wacky rig Cinco green pumpkin. Milton, a big congratulations for not only a big fish, but catching a fish like that off the bank is not easy to do. It sounds like you've worked hard for it, so congratulations. Nev's been out. He got a 4.9 on a top water right here around Paradise, but he's reporting the general fishing is slow. Bill went out a big break. Bill's a kayak guy. He got a 4-pounder on a jerk bait, got a 19-inch striper. Rest of the day, super slow. Sedley's been going out. Sedley is one of my friends that fishes a lot of striper. He's a good angler. He's usually catching quite a few striper, but it hasn't happened. Him and his partner went out and they had, I think, 3 fish all day on Kitex, and he started using umbrella rigs. Just couldn't get a fish on top water, couldn't get anything blowing up. So that's kind of the general consensus of what's been going on. I have really been sidetracked by the salmon. I have been in some areas where there are salmon and we've caught some fish. Again, we're not targeting them. We just happen to be catching them. They are biting. We're catching, I'd say 80% of our fish are grabbing the bait. They're caught in the mouth. We have unfortunately snagged a couple of fish. And you know, if you catch one, you don't have to act like it's not fun catching it. They're fun to catch. They jump. They're stronger than heck. We have been releasing them quickly and unharmed, and hopefully they'll live to fight another day, or they'll live to spawn anyhow. But I've kind of been sidetracked by some of the salmon. The areas that we are fishing salmon in, especially when we're using a jerkbait, we are picking up bass. I have not caught a striper this week. All of my bass have been caught on jerkbaits, lipless crankbaits, paddle tail swim baits like Kitex. So if you're going out this week, I highly recommend keeping a jerkbait on. That's been the number one bait. Kitex is probably the number two with an underspin or an overspin. People are catching fish on worms. I just haven't slowed down enough to catch fish on worms. Think about this. You got to start thinking about what you're going to be doing in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Things are going to change dramatically. Right now, you have to be very versatile, and you just got to keep changing till you find what they're hitting on. I think the Ned rig is going to be a good rig this year. We have clear water. We have a lot of clear bottom. If you haven't watched my Ned rig video, I'll put that up at the end here. Check that video out. It's kind of a Bubba Ned fishing, a Ned fishing that I do out here that's more, I believe, suited to the Delta. I'm using bigger worms, using the Ned rig philosophy, but bigger baits, and just working them a little different, trying not to lose them down in the vegetation. So check out that video. It has a lot of good information in it. But until then, be versatile, and there's very light pressure out here. It's been beautiful out here. Get a coat for the morning and the evening. Make sure you got if you got hair like I do, you want to have a stocking cap on. It is getting cool in the mornings, but it's just still great fishing out here. You can catch fish. It's not going to be as many fish as you caught last week, but it's still going to be a lot of fun. So thank you guys for staying with me, and I will be out here every week and giving the report, whether it's bad or good. If you have a report, a lot of people have been asking where you send them to. I'll mention this again. scooper9561032@gmail.com. Send them there. You can send your pictures and reports. Keep them coming in, and we'll see you guys on the water. Thanks again for watching.